So this is when you expose the devil's targeting tactics, levels of the organized crime phenomenon called gang stalking.
As someone who has experienced gang stalking myself, and I've spoken to other gang stalking victims and done some of my own research, I've discovered some patterns. And so I thought I'd share a little bit about that today. One thing I have identified is those who are targeted are generally individuals who have been othered in their community, whether they have different views or a different lifestyle than what's considered to be acceptable in the area that they live or in that culture, what's the norm. Or it could be someone who is a witness to a crime or a certain level of corruption that if that targeted individual were to speak out, it could dismantle an institution or a person of power or organization. And so the goal is to silence or discredit that victim. That victim could also be the heir of something of value. So those who want to take it from that targeted individual will be attacking them and trying to destabilize them in order to justify taking from them. One thing I've noticed is that, gang stalking can be very organized. It's a scheme. There's co-conspirators and they have plots and plans to try to entrap the victim, to try to destabilize the victim, to discredit the victim. And the way this is done by the gang stalkers is to attack the hierarchy of human needs. So back here I have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, my little makeshift board here, and I just wanted to touch on how you can somewhat determine the depth of the corruption involved in a gang stalking case by how deep the attacks go on the hierarchy of that human need or the targeted individual's needs. So for example, we all have basic physiological needs, our human needs for shelter, sleep, air, water, food, clothing. So at the core of stalking is generally first going to be, disrupt their sleep. If you're having harassers peering through your windows at night, or you're worried about break-ins or people on your property, you're being recorded outside your home. So it makes you hesitant to go to the grocery store to get food, or maybe if you get food ordered, there's poison in it, or whatever the case may be. Gang stalkers will contact neighbors, landlord, have them watch you, monitor you, try to get you kicked out of your housing, making false claims to make the landlord or neighbors feel uncomfortable having you in the neighborhood based on the lies and rumors the gang stalkers are spreading. Attacks on the victim or targeted individual's employment. If their stability and resources are at stake, they're not getting any sleep, they don't know where they're going to live because now they're getting kicked out based upon lies, or they feel unsafe where they live because, they've got people trying to enter their home when they leave or recording them every time they make any moves. Then this core need is going to distract the victim so much trying to stay stable that it becomes much easier for those targeting to get away with whatever they're doing, whether it be theft or corruption, to keep the victim so distracted and in a state of survival and crisis by attacking these areas of their life. Next, we all have a human need to feel safe, to feel security. So if you've got gang stalkers, committing property damage, vandalism, if you have had, windows broken out in your car, or you're being tracked or followed, you're not going to feel very safe. And as a victim, if you go to law enforcement seeking help and they're non-responsive, that's a good indicator you can assume there might be some law enforcement corruption occurring when it reaches this level and you're not able to get assistance. In your physiological needs, your health is really important. So if you're under a lot of stress because of all these attacks on you, if the gang stalkers are trying to cause stress-related illnesses or mental illnesses because you're in a state of anxiety and fear all the time, you can also identify if medical provider involvement is part of the corruption. In this level, you could experience HIPAA violations, release of medical records, alteration of medical records. So in these levels of gang stalking, we'll start to see who some of the deeper seated corrupted players are. Next, the need for love and belonging, feeling being part of a community, having a sense of belonging. The gang stalkers are going to reach out to friends, to family. They're going to try to isolate you from any kind of support so you feel alone, that you have no one to turn to for help. And that furthers the goal of portraying the victim as being unstable. They're a loner. They don't have a support system. It becomes much easier to attack someone that appears to be alone. Next, and deeper seated corruption, gang stalking attacks, they're going to attack the esteem of the victim, the self-esteem. They're going to do this through smear campaigns, humiliation rituals. They may release personal information of the victim online or to the community, the public, control of media, hiding the bad deeds from the media and trying to portray the victim in a false way. The smear campaign attacks, exploitation of the victim, circulating images of the victim, doing whatever they can to humiliate the victim in hopes that the victim will withdraw, and then they won't want to speak up. They'll just kind of tuck away or be so distracted trying to meet their basic survival needs that certainly the victim isn't going to speak up about what they know or provide witness testimony if we humiliate them so much that they'll never want to show their face again. And that's a sick but true reality of these cases. And lastly, self-actualization. So we all have human need to make goals and have dreams and pursue higher level careers and, to purchase a home or whatever the goal may be. It becomes next to impossible for a victim to focus on anything moving forward in their life in this level if they're down here worrying about, where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? Is somebody going to break into my house if I go to a doctor appointment or to the grocery store? Is my car safe to drive or has it been tampered with? Have I been fired from my job or am I going to get fired because people keep contacting my employer? The gang stalkers are spreading so many rumors about me that people in the community I don't know are being assaultive toward me verbally or making me feel unsafe in public. The targeting of the individual, the gang stalking, really is to cause all this chaos, this disrupt, this destabilization of the victim's life, so they can then in turn say, look, this victim's not stable. You shouldn't believe anything they have to say. They should be excluded from providing testimony or input on the matter. They certainly shouldn't be allowed to have, their inheritance or, whatever the case may be. And you can tell by the level of attacks who the players are when it comes to corruption. Down here it could be medical providers, law enforcement, it could be attorneys. And then as farther in depth as the hierarchy is attacked, it could progress to a city council or a bar association that's not taking appropriate action. It could be a court system that has employees behaving corruptly. It could, even go so high as government officials who have knowledge and involvement and are calling the shots on these attacks or have knowledge of them and are not taking appropriate action. And all of these players that have any knowledge that are delaying justice, obstructing justice, preventing the victim from having their human rights, their access to justice, things like that, further demonstrate how deep the corruption runs. And just like God uses each of us as vessels to do good, to accomplish his works for one another, Satan certainly uses people also to accomplish his dark works. And a wise move on Satan's part would be to tempt and attack someone of power to get them to do works for him, because then the impact is greater. If someone in a position of power is behaving with corruption and deception and manipulation, if they're misusing their access to resources and contacts and networking in order to do non-wholesome things, to harm another, then Satan can get more accomplished through that person than just an average person. And so it's really sad to see this level of corruption at the roots of so many gang stalking attacks. And I used to be skeptical when I heard victims speaking about gang stalking, because often they've been so traumatized by these level of attacks that they have a hard time articulating what's happening to them in a way that's believable. But going through this myself and knowing some of the players that are involved and the violation of their ethics and job duties and the lack of response and negligence that has occurred, these are real situations that really need to be taken seriously and addressed.
Looks like you forgot, once again, how powerful you are.